I was watching Club Shay Shay, Shannon Sharp's podcast, and he had Roy Wood Jr. on there. The big thing was his dad wasn't really around for Roy like he should have been. But then he started another family. So Roy's got some half siblings. And he said he loved the woman he married after Roy's mom. He loved her. And he said, so I got to see what love was, but I wasn't really a part of it because that wasn't the dad I knew. That wasn't the dad I got. And he said when he passed, his brothers and sisters would always say things like, he loved you. He did the best he could. And Roy's kind of like, well, he didn't do the best he could. But he said, he does believe his dad truly loved his second wife. I don't want to say second wife, the wife that he lived with most of his life. I don't want to butcher the story. The woman he was with after Roy's mom. He truly loved her. He was a good dad to those kids. But that wasn't the dad that Roy got. And that wasn't the love that he saw with his mom. And his mom struggled. And he had to see that. He had to see his mom calling people borrow money. And when he said all that, I was like, I started thinking about my own life. And I was just like, yeah, I think my dad, I think he's been a great dad to my twin sisters. But that's not the dad that I saw. That's not the dad that I got. But I do think he's involved. I don't think I know he's involved in their lives. When they start having kids, he's uberly involved in the grandkids. And that was never the dad I got. And I went pretty hard on him on my special Black Famous. And no, even Broken Family. Broken Family, I went really hard on him and his wife, but I was really upset by how he treated me and cussed me out on the phone. So I've told the story before, but I'll give you a brief synopsis. So my dad wasn't really around growing up, but then he kind of came back into my life right when I was getting on TV and getting out of the Navy and stuff. And at first I thought it was cool. And then I realized he's kind of using me. Whether we go out to eat, I'm always picking up the bill, even when he invites me to eat. But I wanted the relationship so bad, I would bite my tongue on a lot of things. And then, so in the back of my brain, I always thought, yeah, this guy's kind of using me a little bit for perks. He'd always tell people I'm Gary Owen's dad and get into places and stuff like that. And then during the divorce, in the middle of the divorce, I was avoiding a process server. I came home and I went to a Reds game and I got a suite and I didn't invite him. Now, I invited a couple of my buddies, and when you get a suite, you get like 16 tickets. And while I was at the game, either my Uncle Bob or my Uncle Daryl called. They're my dad's brothers. And they said, where you at? They was like, we're downtown. I said, I'm at the Reds game. Come down. I'll message you a couple tickets. So they came down, and now they're in the suite with us. And my dad called his brother Daryl why we were in the suite. And so where you at? He goes, I'm at the Reds game, man. Gary got a suite. And my dad was like, really? And so the next morning, I woke up to a voicemail from my dad cussing me out. And then I got a long text cussing me out. And it was basically because I didn't take him to the Reds game. And he was talking about I don't respect him and things like that. And I'm just going, where's this coming from? And then I was like, oh my God, he's mad because I didn't take him to a Reds game. So when I called him a couple hours later, I said, yo, Dad, I got your text and I got your voicemail. He goes, yeah, I meant every word of it. I go, this ain't going to go well. And, we're having a back and forth. It's heated, but it's somewhat respectful. We're not cussing each other. And then, he's going, I said, Dad, you're mad about a Reds game. I said, you just took family pictures and didn't invite me. So I'm on Facebook, and all of a sudden I see my sisters, their husbands, their kids, my dad and his wife. And they got these family pictures they took. Nobody called. Nobody asked me to be in it. And so somebody even said, where's Gary Jr. on his page? He goes, oh, he had to work. And I was like, how did he know? I'm thinking, I had to work. I never got a phone call for these family pictures. And then I didn't even say nothing. It bothered me, but it didn't bother me to the point where it was like, it's weighing on me. So I said, Dad, you took family pictures and invited me. And he goes, oh, shit. I knew this was coming. And I was like, and that's when I snapped on him, because I was like, wait a minute. He knew this bothered me. He knew this was going to bother me. And he waited for me to bring him up so he could kind of pounce on it. And I was like, that's when I was like, I cussed at him, cussed his family. I just went off and hung up. And then that was the last time I talked to him. Since then, I've been in touch with my sisters. I'm not sure where I stand right now because my special came out. And I warned both of them. I was like, look, I go pretty hard on your mom and dad on this special. And I just want to give you a heads up. I filmed it like over a year and a half ago. So I've definitely softened since then, but I was really heated when I filmed it. And, I said, they said, all right, but I haven't really heard from him much since. So I don't know where our relationship stands, honestly. And that could be part of my fault too. Like I haven't really reached out either. So I can't say it's all them. I ain't gonna lie, I'm a little nervous. I'm thinking I don't want to be rejected or ignored again. So it's hard for me to reach out sometimes. So if they see this, I'm an open book if you guys want to reach out again. But it's weird because I don't know, Roy's watching this interview got me reflecting on my own relationship with my parents. And it's just sometimes it's difficult to process because, your parents are supposed to love you unconditionally. That's the thing. There's like guys on death row. Only people that are definitely coming to see him are his parents. It's rare that parents turn away their kids. I guess for me, what's hard to process is both my parents did it. My mom and my dad just completely disregarded me. And it was because there was conditions on the love. It wasn't unconditional. With my dad, it feels like it was very transactional. Like, what can Gary do for me? And the fact that I didn't invite him to a baseball game, that severed the relationship. Okay, you're talking about a dad that wasn't really around when I was growing up. That was a convenience. So he would come around, but it was only when it was convenient for him. And then we get back in the saddle when I'm an adult, and this is what ended it? A Reds game? I was like, oh, that's entitlement. Like, how dare Gary go to the game and not invite me? And then two, it's like, you could be a little hurt by it and let me know. We could talk about it, but to just cuss me out and say we're done, I was like, oh, he was just using me. It wasn't really about me. And so, yeah, that sucks. And then my mom, she cut me off because I did an article for BuzzFeed. You can look it up back in like 2014. And in the article I said, my stepdad's an asshole. And that's how I feel. So she cut me off because I kind of let the family secret out that my stepdad is an asshole. And so she got back in touch with me when my brother died. And then we tried to reconcile. And it was still a little awkward. But, when somebody dies, a tragic incident like that, the whole family tries to rally around each other and make good. And that kind of ended when we were doing all right. And then I got asked to speak in Washington, D.C. on this platform called Facing Addiction. And they did a comedy show, and then they had people speak. And I got invited. So I went and I called my mom, my stepdad, and I said, hey, if you guys want to go to this, I'll get you there. I'll get you a flight and put you up. I think it'd be good to be around other family members that have lost people to addiction. And my mom goes, let me talk to Rod about it. And I didn't think they would come. They never go anywhere. They never leave. So I'll never forget. I was in Des Moines, Iowa, in my hotel room. My stepdad calls me and he said, hey, tell me more about this addiction thing. I was like, I'm telling him, hey, it's a program. Chris Herron used to play for the Celtics. He's in it. They got like hundreds of thousands of people coming to DC that are either in recovery or has a family member that has passed away or is in recovery. And it's just a good, camaraderie type deal. He goes, so what are you doing? I said, there's a comedy show, but then I'm also going to speak. And he was like, well, look, man, if you're using Dallas's death to benefit your career, I don't agree with that. I was like, what? I was still taken back. Like he took that angle. Like I'm going to go and try to make myself a bigger comedian on the basis of my brother dying of a heroin overdose. I'm going, what are you talking about? And then he tried to blame me for my brother dying. And that was basically killed the relationship with my stepdad because he said, Dallas was doing fine. He was good. Now he'd already overdosed like 2 or 3 times when this BuzzFeed article came out in 2014. He said, Dallas was doing fine, man. He was good. He was on his way to recovery. And then that article came out and that set him back. And I'm going, come on now. I had long talks with my brother Dallas. He knew his dad was a little off, my stepdad. We used to laugh about it because some of the stuff he did was just so like it was so irrational, so much irrational behavior and spur of the moment. I mean, just like go off the handle and stuff. And so I was like, well, I know that's not true. He's making that up. But then he was like, I said, whoa, did you just blame me for him dying? Keep in mind, I've never done drugs, never been in trouble. When my brother overdosed, I'm the one that picked him up, took him to rehab and paid for the rehab, right? Never asked for nobody to pay me back. Nothing. I just did it because that's my brother. And if I got it, you got to do that. And never brought that up. He just found a way to blame me for him dying. And I was just like, and then we were going to go after custody of my brother's daughter. Me and my ex-wife, we were going to go after custody. And the ugliness that came from that side of the family, that just kind of ended it. Because I tried to call my mom and say, we can't pick her friends, but we can influence the pool for which she's choosing. We'll have her in a good school district, good home. She's going to need some therapy. We'll put her in therapy. And I told my mom, you're like 60. What are you doing with a 3-year-old? And she was like, well, I feel like you're taking her away from us. I go, I would never do that. You can come see her whenever you want. And then she said, are you going to change your last name? I said, why would I do that? The question was so weird. Then my mom was like, I can't do it. So I think my mom was emotionally attached to her, but that whole relationship ended because of the custody battle for the daughter. And it got ugly. And then me and my ex just backed away because I go, man, we got to protect our own kids. And it sucks, but we can't risk our lives would be in turmoil if we would have taken this little girl on. And there's no guarantee we would have got her either. There's that part. And that all, let me say something. That all started the custody battle because there's a guardian ad litem. There was a custody battle between the baby mama and my mom and stepdad. And the guardian ad litem, which is like a person assigned to the child to look out for the child's best interest, she called me. I don't know how she got my info, but she goes, are you Dallas Randall's brother? I said, yeah. She was like, yeah, people in my office are saying that's your brother, and I'm in charge of her case, and I'm not comfortable with either family. I'm not comfortable with the baby mama or, your mom and stepdad. I said, oh. She goes, so I'm putting in for emergency removal. I said, well, what does that mean? She goes, well, she'll go into foster care. I said, oh, no. What can I do? She goes, the only other option is I have to find somebody that will take her in. I said, we'll take her. She goes, all right. She goes, I have to come to do a home visit. So she came and did a home visit, looked around, did background checks on me and my ex. And then she was like, all right. She said, I feel like this kid hit the lottery when she walked in her house. And it was like out of a movie. When she walked in her house, my daughter was on the kitchen counter doing homework. Austin was like in the backyard playing with the dog. It was like out of a movie. Like the kids are just doing what you're supposed to be doing, I guess. And then, so we got to sign all this paperwork to say, we'll take this child if the judge approves the emergency removal. You can't tell anybody. So we got to sign this paperwork. We went and got a car seat. We were getting ready for her to get to our house. We thought she was going to be there. She goes, once this goes through, I'm taking it to the judge. And if he approves it, we go get her immediately. So all this was about to happen in the same day. Not that she called and came like a couple of days later and did the home visit, did the background check. All that took about 3 or 4 days. But then when we signed, she's trying to get the emergency removal, it was going to happen. And I was like, how do you call your mom and be like, they don't think you're a good parent? How do you say that? So anyways, the judge denied it. And so now my signature's on the paperwork. And then my mom's calling me, what's going on? And I was like, they just came to me. I said, I was trying to play like soften the blow. I was like, they just came to me and they just said they weren't sure where she should go. And would I take her? I was like, yeah. And that's when I came to my mom. I said, we'd like to try to get custody of her if possible. And then she flipped out. I was like, no. So that's what kind of ended it with my mom. And then I just told you how it ended with my dad. But it's the weirdest thing. Like, both of them, like, I can't hate them. They're still my mom and dad.